It has been a great joy to watch this man defy every expectation, both scientific and personal.
Sorry, did you say something?
Felicity and I, when we got cast, there was this extraordinary, wonderful feeling, because what a privilege to tell their story. But then there was a subsequent moment of complete terror, because you know that ultimately these people are going to be seeing the film.
They're complicated, nuanced, eccentric individuals. It's intimidating. It was our third day of shooting, and we could see Jane out of the corner of one eye and then Stephen out the corner of the other, which was possibly the most surreal and intimidating moment of the whole of the shoot.
And it was
petrifying.
It was petrifying, yeah.
Leave me now.
Are you going to talk about this or not?
Please, will you just go?
Is that what you want?
Yes, it is what I want, so please, if you care about me at all, then please just go.
Jane, I spoke to her afterwards, and she said thank you to all of us. And I know it was important to her that every person in it was shown in a fair, nuanced way, and she was pleased that had happened.
Well, I saw Stephen just before he was going to see the film, and I was so nervous. I said, Stephen, I'm very nervous, but, you know, let me know what you think. And he took a while. He now just uses one muscle, all these muscles in his cheek to communicate to a sensor and then onto a screen. He took a few minutes to respond, and he said, I will let you know what I think, good or otherwise. And I said, thanks, Stephen. If it's otherwise, we can just stick to otherwise. We don't need all the details, all the glory. But he was very generous.
My name is Stephen Hawking.
It's American.
Is that a problem?
He owns the copyright to his voice, and when we'd made the film, we'd used a sort of synthesized, like, our approximation of what his voice was, and after seeing the film, he gave us his voice.
And that's his actual trademark voice in the film. And I heard he cried too, right?
Yeah, I didn't see him afterwards, but the producers were with him, and yes, said it was quite emotional.
There should be no boundaries to human endeavor.
So it was about 4 months of going to a clinic every week or two and meeting people who suffer from this brutal disease and their families. And so, well, through this research, because it's very specific, you have upper neurons and lower neurons, and if your upper neurons go, there's like a rigidity, and if your lower neurons go, there's a sort of softness, like a wilting. And ALS is a mixture of those two things, but how it manifests itself in each person is completely unique. So working with the specialist, I try to work out which muscles would go when, and then mapped all that out with sort of things like which glasses is he wearing and whether he's on one stick or two sticks or which wheelchair he was in, and then I decided to work with a dancer, basically to try and train my muscles to be able to stay in these sort of positions for extended periods, and so that when Felicity and I started working together, we could totally forget about the physical side of it and just play the emotional story, which is when you meet Stephen, he has no interest in the disease. I mean, he literally is someone that was given that diagnosis and has just chosen to live his life forward and passionately. And so we wanted to similarly not to be playing a disease, but to be playing the human story.
Similarly, it was taking a character from 18 to 45. I wanted to show those shifts and transitions through her physicality. And actually, when I met Jane, she has this extraordinary way of holding herself and moving. And funny, you say you worked with a dancer. There's something very dance-like about Jane. She has a self-consciousness about being well presented in the world.
For me, with Stephen, it was just his wit, like his humor. This kind of incisive wit, but also this overriding sense of mischief. This kind of, I describe it as a like Lord of Misrule quality, and he really controls a room.
Wouldn't that be nice, Professor? The one simple, elegant equation to explain everything.
Yes, it would.
At the end of each day, James would encourage Felicity and I to improvise, and he would just get out a camera and start filming it for some of that sort of time passing rather than having 5 years later. And so, you know, he really wanted, and he just allowed us so much freedom.
Sometimes you go in and the scene, it's already laid out, you know, your marks are down and they've decided what the scene is before you even get there. But with this, it was so luxurious for us because the camera movements would all be decided depending on the performance, would come from performance, so it felt like there was this incredible communication between between everyone.
We both felt brave enough to make mistakes, and that was the most wonderful thing.
You see how the men's shirt fronts and the bow ties, how they glow more than the women's dresses?
Yes.
Do you know why?
Why?
Tide.
The washing powder.
My retinas saw every single word that is in A Brief History of Time. How much I understood is definitely a different question.
James, Eddie and I, we all studied art subjects at university, so the three of us trying to have a conversation about Stephen's scientific theories was the most hilarious thing ever. We sort of get halfway thinking we understood, and then we sort of give up and go and have a coffee. So
There is hope.
Thank you.